Adventure Bros is probably my favorite show of all time. Love the characters, the world building, and the themes. There's so much detail with Adventure Bros that I can gush about it for hours. However, while people have made some great video essays exploring the world and the themes of Adventure Bros, these two I'm particularly fond of, there's always been an aspect of Adventure Bros I've always liked that never seems to get talked about. That is, its commentary on disability in superhero media. The Adventure Bros takes place in a world where pulp adventurers, super scientists, and superheroes are not only all real, but a career choice for a lot of people. The show was created by Hammer and Jackson Publick, two incredibly talented writers whose love of pop culture is in every strand of DNA throughout the show. With a toy-chest cast of characters, they can both deconstruct and build back up anything from their childhood they loved.
It is, I think it's finally...
Oh, we're goofing on things we love.
Yeah, that is the difference between our show, is we're not guessing what is nerdy. We just write about what we love, and we write it with love, and we write it with understanding. And if there's any critique, it's the same critique you give when you watch your kid fall off a bike and go, "That's my son. That's what he does. He tries so hard."
Pop stars, action serials, adventure cartoons, and of course, superheroes. Something I've always found really interesting about the Adventure Bros cast is just the amount of characters with a visible disability. Both background characters you'll see in one episode to the main cast. Billy has dwarfism and is missing a hand and eye, Pete has albinoism, Brock has a metal plate in his chest, and even Dr. Girlfriend's voice is implied to be considered some form of voice disorder. While the superhero and pulp adventure setting is no stranger to having a plethora of disabled characters, it tends to have a very murky track record of portraying characters with disability or disfigurement. For most of superhero history, characters with a visible disfigurement were used as a visual metaphor for villainy, or being inhuman, while mental disability was used to portray someone as twisted or unreachable. Batman's Rogues Gallery alone pretty much has done every disabled villain trope out there. It tends to portray them in the not best light. The Joker is often portrayed as having his skin being permanently altered after a chemical accident, as well as having various scars. Harvey Dent not only has a facial deformity but has DID. The Penguin has a facial deformity and usually some form of dwarfism. Killer Croc has a skin condition, Mr. Freeze has a support suit he can't live without, and Crazy Quilt is blind. And that's just a handful of Batman's rogues. The James Bond series, another franchise the Adventure Bros parodies a lot, has a tradition of giving their villains some form of facial deformity. Deformity as a mark of villainy has become such a prevalent trend in superhero media that the Adventure Bros even parodied this. In the episode The Invisible Hand of Fate, the OSI recruits Billy to go undercover at State University, suspecting that Phantomos is recruiting other students into the guild. Students who have deformities and high intelligence like Billy, which is textbook supervillain material.
I mean, why me?
You fit the profile.
Deformed, disgraced, an extra-intelligent super freak shunned by an unforgiving world.
Yeah, that sounds like a profile for, like, suicide.
Or an international supervillain.
While there is the occasional character like Harley Quinn who is treated with a lot of sympathy, for a lot of these characters, disability serves as a visual metaphor to show their inner corruptness. This is a mindset that's been around for literally centuries. From religious figures viewing disability as a sign of someone's inner corruptness, for ugly law finding people with any visible difference being out in public, outward appearance has been acquainted as a reflection of someone's inner nature for far too long. And while that is viewed as an outdated mindset, it should be known that it's not completely gone from the public. Disability advocate group Changing Faces has various campaigns and videos talk about living with a visible difference, and the harassment they've received, and how a lot of the names they were called tended to be villainous characters.
This memory would probably be
Freddy Krueger,
the Joker,
Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean,
Voldemort, Scar. Like, he's the evil character, he's the one that's scary.
And it just showed that he was the bad guy and he wasn't really an approachable character.
Of course, I'm not saying everyone part of a marginalized group should never be portrayed as an antagonist, or should be exempt from jokes. That's condescending. But the difficulty with advocating for disfigurement is that portraying disfigured characters in villainous lights is far more accepted by society. Adventure Bros does have several villains with disfigurement. With how being a villain is literally a job in this world, and how characters with disfigurement are frequent in the cast, they rarely seem like they're being made fun of for their disability, nor do they ever seem out of place. Really Quizboy may have started as a background character, but he's developed so much, going from a suck-up fanboy to an actual licensed superhero who is somewhat respected by the OSI.
He's clean as a whistle, won't remember a thing. Aren't you gonna wipe my memory?
Wait, you lazy bastard! If you had even an ounce of that little guy's moxie, I'd be cleaning you like a toilet seat!
The show has JJ. Can you name another show where a character with both dwarfism and prosthetic is shown to be charming, successful, and is the subject of envy by his brother, while the show barely calls attention to it? Another way Venture Bros is unique is how it doesn't shy away from showing the hurdles of disability a lot of people have to go through. Perhaps as a response to the disabled villain, the superpower disability is a less hateful but still prevalent trope that has a handful of issues, where instead of making the disabled character tragic or villainous by nature, they overcompensate, making the character beyond human, and tend to ignore any issues that a disabled person may face in the real world, such as healthcare issues or discrimination they may face, ironically erasing the character's disability in a way. This can lead to people with disability in the real world being given an unrealistic expectation to live up to. The most recognizable example of this would probably be the blind martial artist / swordsman, where due to their lack of sight they have a secondary magical ability to compensate for their lack of senses, or their other senses have been heightened to superhuman levels. Though, interestingly enough, that doesn't have as much of a basis in real life as people think. It's not so much blind people have better senses, it's more so they're just more reliant on their others. Daredevil, Stick, Madam Web, Kenshi, even Toph tend to fall into this trope, where the series finds a way to kind of ignore the more real problems blind people would come across in real life. Look, there are several Daredevil comics where Matt's sense of touch is so good that he can make out and read the words on a normal piece of paper. At what point does he still count as being blind? I think it's also important to note that a lot of these disabled characters with superhuman skills tend to fall into being very conventionally attractive, so you know, we're laying outward appearance to their inner goodness once again. Venture Bros is willing to show the day-to-day issues different disabled people may face. Monstroso has gigantism and needs a heart transplant. Action Man has plastic knees and has a hard time going upstairs. And Rusty has metal pins in his shoulders, so he can't go through things like an MRI scanner. The show isn't aiming to baby any of the characters. Rather, it shows the different nuances people with disability go through, and how they may be treated differently depending on their disability.
Being little is not the same.
You and I have found out that being normal sucks, because we're freaks. The advantage of being a freak is it makes you stronger.
You see, I'm a freak too.
Well, some of us can't make our head smaller with makeup, okay?
Look.
It should be noted that while Venture Bros does typically portray characters with physical disability, it does occasionally portray those with mental disability as well. Mental disability in superhero media is a whole nother beast, from terms like madness and craziness being overused, to stuff like DID being a scary boogeyman power some supervillains have. Sadly, any form of mental illness in comic books is often treated as an arc for a character to get over, or an aesthetic. Characters like Harley Quinn feel like such a safe portrayal of mental illness. While everyone with mental illness deals with it in a different way, there's very little meaningful commentary said about Harley Quinn, nor does the series ever want to get into uncomfortable territory. Rather, stuff like Insanity with Harley Quinn is kind of used similar to her costumes, as it's treated more like a look for Harley than anything else. Also, Harley is hot, and DC has been trying to make her the new mascot for years, and it's probably easier to market her if she didn't resemble anyone in real life that made people uncomfortable, which is the boring but probably more truthful answer. Myra, though, the closest equivalent to Harley Quinn in Venture Bros, is an entirely different story. While it's genuinely unclear what Myra has, her hyper-obsession with the Venture family and lack of grasp on reality gets her a much more uncomfortable, realistic portrayal of someone who needs psychiatric help. But characters with mental disability in Venture Bros are rarely treated as evil, as we see them in different avenues of life. Characters like Ned may need more help than Dr. Quinn, who may also need help, but they're all still treated as people. Venture Bros has a lot of nuance and is made with a lot of care. While the early seasons may have some outdated jokes, you can see both the writers and the series itself evolve over time, poking fun at social constructs like gender, and a show where characters in the audience can both laugh at and find the beauty in their own flaws, and it's a show that's deeply human. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about this. This is a topic I've been thinking of for quite a while. This, of course, is just my opinion, so feel free to let me know what you think. If you want another perspective of disabilities in animation, I would highly recommend checking out Fiona Paul's channel about it and her video on disability in media and fandom. It's really good. Thank you all for listening. Have a good day.